yeah, we back with another episode of The Twisted Tea, where we come to bring you the news with a twist. Now, I don't know if the internet is just slow or that's the camera that has it looking that way. So I'm gonna hit y'all with one of these and see if it comes in clearer. All right, with everything that's going on right now, we have Young Thug just getting out of jail. I know it's been a while. It's been almost a couple years since he's been in jail. So he's been fighting that trial down there in Atlanta, and we're glad to see that everything has started to take a turn and work itself out for him. Now, we're going to turn our attentions to some of the things that have gone on in the trial, some of the things on why and how he's gotten out and what he's going to have to continue to do to stay out and stay out of trouble. I'm on a shared screen. You know how it goes. We're also going to get into some of the comments and things made by his father, prosecution. We're going to also see what the judge had to say, get into what some of the lawyers on it have to say and what they think about everything that had to take place, and kind of breaking down what is going on.
I'm Jay O'Brien in Washington. Right now on ABC News Live, breaking news. Rapper Young Thug agreeing to a plea deal in his long-running RICO case in Atlanta, the longest-running criminal case in Georgia history. Young Thug, real name Jeffrey Williams, in court just a short time ago, agreeing to change his plea to guilty on gang-related charges and pleading no contest to conspiracy to violate the RICO Act of that state and leading a criminal street gang. Here is that moment from court.
As to count 58 violations.
So we're going to get into reading what those counts are, some of the things that were going on in this. As we continue through this, we will also, again, get into what the judge has to say to him about it. We're going to get into what Young Thug had to say about it and some of the other people who are still, well, pretty much stuck dealing with the rest of this.
Of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act. How do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 59, violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act. How do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 60, violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act. How do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 61, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. How do you plead?
Guilty.
The Grammy winner was charged 2 years ago in a sprawling indictment accusing him and more.
Now, you didn't hear RICO inside of that, okay?
More than 24 others of violating Georgia's anti-racketeering law. He was also charged with gang, drug, and gun crimes. Joining us now to break down this breaking news is ABC News contributor and SiriusXM radio host Mike Muse, and ABC News contributor and trial attorney Shauna Lloyd. Thank you both. Welcome in. And Shauna, I do want to start with you because the state said it would recommend a sentence of 45 years with 25 served in custody, followed by 20 years on probation. A lot to unpack there, but
y'all heard that? So originally, they wanted this man for 25 years, okay? Now, in this case, a lot of the things that have gone on, I will say, and I'm saying this kind of lightly when I say this, man, the Fulton County Department down there, for everything we have witnessed and watched through the media, they made themselves look stupid. Okay? They made themselves look stupid. They didn't help their cause at all. And nothing they brought up, nothing that was done. They have had mistake after mistake after mistake ongoing inside of everything that has gone on in Thug's case. The whole time.
Point being is, what do we know about the time served that Young Thug could get here and the time in prison he could get? And what more do we know about the terms of this agreement?
Well, we know that the state is trying to get a maximum amount of 45 years. We know that the defense has been pushing back. He also has a certain amount of time already served that the judge could commute the sentence to. If she feels that that was enough time, she could commute the years that they're talking about to time served. So there's a number of variables at play here. And it's
The important thing to note in this is that, you know, as this case was going on, they did change who was the judge, right? There was you see, like I said, they made a mockery of themselves throughout most of this case. So there was the first judge that was there was a guy. The guy judge was caught throughout the case doing things that, well, he wasn't supposed to be doing as a judge. Okay. One of the things that actually got him kicked off the case was that he decided to hold a private meeting between prosecution and the witness without letting, well, Young Thug's lawyers and the other people in the court know what was going on so that they could defend themselves, which is very, well, that's a no-no. That's a no-no. Not legal.
really going to boil down to where the judge feels he lies on this dangerous, whether or not he's dangerous to society and whether or not she feels as though the time he served is enough for the crimes that they're alleging.
Mike Muse, break down the significance of this for us, because this is a trial that was watched by millions. Rap lyrics in it took center stage in some of the charging documents and some of the proceedings in court. What does this mean for not just Young Thug's career, but also just the wider music world, which watched this with anticipation?
Yeah, one, this was a trial that I thought would never come to an end. Second, a lot of things came out of this.
Man, ain't nobody thought this trial was going to end at the rate that it was going and all the mistakes that were going on.
But you just greatly highlighted, Jay, in particular, the examination of hip hop lyrics and how it should be used in prosecutorial cases against the hip hop industry and against hip hop individuals in hip hop who are being brought up about charges.
Before he gets into it and speaks on that, I will say that I don't feel like they should be using the certain. Look, when you make a song, even though they've gone out to find that certain songs are very much what has gone on inside of certain cases and very much, well, a detailed outline of everything in certain people's deaths and murders and things, they come out and they go, well, you just testified to it because of how you said, and it was on a recording. I don't think that it should, like, when you look at music as an art form, they go, okay, it's an art form. They probably shouldn't be held to that standard of having it in the art and used inside of court, right? Now, as I've mentioned on multiple occasions, especially even with the stuff that's going on here with like the Little Dirk, most people take music and, you know, take it for granted as far as belief in what is going on. Most of it is fake.
A very controversial term because it goes to understanding culture, context, and lexicon. And so if a prosecutor or a judge or a jury may not be familiar with different terminologies, they can misinterpret a word or phrase that could be for illegality purposes. But in today's current social vernacular, it could mean something completely different. For example, the terminology of gang could be used in the traditional sense of an organized crime unit, or it could be used as just a group of people who are friends, a clique, right? An entourage, if you will. And so how would that be interpreted when it comes to that? The other thing when it comes to
now, obviously, maybe over like the last 5 to 10 years, you know, they've been using gang, hey gang, as far as a way to refer to people and situations. But prior to that, everybody knew what that meant. Everybody knew that, you know, gang was, well, a clique, a group of individuals ganged up, clicked up, and they rode together to do whatever the heck they went to go do or live however they lived, right? But he's speaking to the fact that, again, the wordplay used inside of certain words, certain songs, certain things, especially in this case, if you don't understand it, then you're going to need somebody to come in and teach you and tell you what things mean and how things are said. So to make it more clearer, if there was a doctor, right? If there was medical things that had to be discussed inside of this case and a doctor went to go take that stand, well, the doctor would have to break down the medical terminology and meanings for the terms so that everybody understood it before the jury or the judge could be like, yeah, that makes sense, because their terms might not make sense to most people.
Be done is how much of the music industry will begin to think about their lyrical content differently, and does this begin to infringe on their artistic freedoms in fear that it could be used against them in a court of law. Keep in mind, Jay, that hip hop is really one of the great tenets of American literature. It is full of allegories and metaphors and entendres and really interesting structures of the English language. And so a lot of that needs to be unpacked and will be unpacked, as I'm sure prosecutors will be looking to this trial specifically in terms of how they can build cases going forward.
Shauna Lloyd, help me understand why this trial took so long. It was a RICO case, so it was always going to take a long time, but this took an unusually long amount of time to get even this far in the trial, and obviously they didn't finish the trial because they've reached a plea agreement.
Absolutely, Jay. Why this trial took this long was, one, we had a high number of defendants within this trial. The second thing is that most of this was built around lyrics, which means that, and other events that it wasn't a singular event that the state was looking to prove, showed that this was a RICO organization. And so what we see is that they had to bring a lot of witnesses. They brought a lot of people who were going to talk about not only the lyrics, but different events and different crimes that had taken place. So this large amount of people was really what took this case this long.
Mike Muse, Shauna Lloyd, thank you both for your time on this Thursday.
So,
Young Thug, real name Jeffrey.
The interesting part to that is, man, this case took so long because half of the time they didn't have their stuff together to continue to proceed. Most of it was a mess, which is why it took so damn long to even begin with. Now, with that, he was sentenced to basically time served, 15 years of probation, and expected to be released on house arrest as of yesterday. Most people will go ahead and say, okay, well, has he been, basically he pleaded guilty, and he did plead guilty, but, right, the thing is, inside of those pleads for a couple of them, like gun possession, no contest to a street gang / RICO, and leadership charges, his guilty plea may be in there, but they basically note it as like, check mark. Yeah, he said it, whatever, it's over. No one is going to basically move on that. So technically, yeah, the plead is in there, but it's not being noticed, if that makes any sense. Because if he was really pleading to that, well, let's be honest, and they were really noticing that, you know, when you get hit with a RICO and the organized crime, you know what happens next. So let's, you know exactly what happens next. We're going to go ahead. Let's take a look at a timeline of everything that has gone down with them inside of this case. It's been going down. I'm going to take you to another screen real quick. Give me a second. And we're going to run down the timeline, everything that has been going and ongoing with this case. Okay. So looking at this, as you can see, Billboard threw out this fancy little article. Don't be surprised if we get a lot of pop-ups because they don't mess with their shit. Let's see. So Young Thug, along with 27 others, as they said, there was a lot of people that were basically rounded up inside of this, were arrested in May 2020 as a part of a 56-count indictment for violations of Georgia's Racketeering Influence Corrupt Organization Act. Thugger was identified as the YSL's, leader, Young Stoner Life. which is why they run out yelling slime. Um, believes that it's a violent gang and that the history dates back to 2012, committing a series of murders, robberies, carjackings, and or assaults. Young Thug, well, he was denied bond on multiple occasions, so he sat inside of jail, which we saw. And then the trial kicked off in November of 2023. Number one, he was arrested May 9th. Okay, got hit with the charges. Shockwaves ran through the community. I told you 56 people got hit up. Well, 56-page indictment. 27 others were arrested with him. May 11th, Gunner goes and turns himself in. Oh, yeah, see? Let's not forget, Gunner was a part of this too. Gunner got out of this, well, a while ago. And they hit him with his rat snitching and all the other things that went on. But Gunner got out of this a while ago, okay? In less than 48 after Thugs was taken into custody, Gunner Sergio, the YSL, was charged with 1-count conspiracy to violate racketeer influence, also corruption. Known as Gunner is innocent. The indictment falsely portrays as music portrays criminal conspiracy, Gunner's attorney said in a joint statement. Now, in May 11, 2022, Young Thug gets hit with the felony charges and they raid his home. In the middle of these raids, they find more stuff. Okay, so they're like, "Ooh, okay, let's throw this on him too." In the middle of the raids, the drugs, the weapons reportedly recovered by authorities resulted in additional 7 felony charges being thrown on him, including illegal firearms, possession of drugs with the intent to distribute. June 2nd, Young Thug was denied bail. That doesn't come as a surprise. June 14th, Gunner released statements claiming his innocence. Okay? What's it say here? It says the YSL rapper added a caption post 2 and 22, just bed and shower. No windows, just walls. Can't see or talk to anybody. I'm writing now, still praying every day. I'm writing now and I'm still praying every day. Said, I was raised to fight fire with water, even though it's all a mess. Now, this looks like, let me see. See, it's going to pull it up on the X, so we ain't even going to go through all that. I could try and zoom in and see what he says, but it looks like he was writing letters to y'all, okay, telling the fans that he was also still very much innocent at the time. August 10th of 2022, Young Thug faces 6 additional felony charges. New charges stem from the raid of his home. So they finally threw those in. Now on December 14th, Gunner reaches a plea deal. Gunner enters a plea deal, which essentially means that he can plead guilty while maintaining his innocence. That's right. Which is why we got to see Gunner come home. All right. While I have agreed to always be truthful, I want to make it perfectly clear that I have not made any statements. I have not been interviewed. I have not cooperated. I have not agreed to testify or be a witness for against any party in case that has absolutely no intention of being involved in the trial process, the rapper said in a statement. Now, the interesting part to that with Gunner, I will say, we're going to see the reaction. We're going to see the reaction, and how Young Thug and Gunner kind of get along now. All right. And if they're going to continue to be friends throughout this process after considering how both of them are home now. We're going to see what happens. January 10th, 2023, Gunna makes his first social media post. Now, again, we're just running through everything that's been ongoing inside of this case and giving out a timeline of things that have, transpired. So Gunna laid low for much of his time, Gunna laid low for much of his time because most of the people were yelling at him, calling him a snitch and a rat anyway. So, and to each his own, posting out, the Fookman rapper had, pictures of himself at the home studio, declared himself back, called for Young Thug's freedom. January 18th of 2023, an alleged drug exchange involved Young Thugs takes place during a court hearing. Yeah, I know, that's nuts. But that's right. In this case, we have seen that is just one of the many absurd things that we have seen go on in this case, where they really had an exchange of drugs go on in court while court was going on. That's right. So, defendant Adams walked across the courtroom for an alleged narcotics exchange with Young Thug during a hearing. They got it on film. However, Thug is off the hook, and Adams was hit with a new charge after being found in possession of more drugs by deputies following an alleged contraband handoff. Okay? May 11th, 2023, Young Thug was hospitalized briefly. All right? Thug fell ill during 2023 court proceedings and was hospitalized briefly. Details of his situations were not provided due to medical privacy laws. What I will say is, he fell ill. He was trying to give him drugs then. He ain't get no drugs, and then he fell ill. Maybe he had an addiction. Maybe he didn't. I'm just saying, they won't tell us Mr. Wills is sleep deprived, mandated to wake up for court at 3 a.m. and 4 a.m., and he's not having more than 5 hours of sleep per night. His attorneys, by the end of the week, Williams is fighting to pay attention in his cases. That's funny. That's funny, right? I think it's funny because he's sleep deprived, but I'm sure he has plenty of time to sleep. Just saying. You tell me what else they got going on they got to do inside. All right? Sure, he in bed by 8 o'clock. Just saying. June 16, 23, Gunna released A Gift and a Curse album, which hit number 3 on the Billboard charts. A Curse, everybody wanted to see what Gunna was going to say. In June 23rd, Young Thug drops Business is Business album from behind bars. You see, everything just keeps going. All right? It's all about the money. They're like, boy, you drop that album, we'll drop a charge. You drop that album, we'll drop a charge. All right? So he dropped an album, which debuted at number 2 on the Billboard's 200s, with a few albums being sold there. Now, November 9th, 2023, judge rules song lyrics allowed to be used in court. Despite hours of deliberation and arguments from the defense, Judge Ural Gainville ruled that lyrics were not protected by First Amendment. 17 sets of lyrics to be used against Young Thug and his people in court. They're not prosecuting your client because of the songs he wrote, Gainville said. They're used the song to provide other things your clients may have been involved in. I don't think that it's an attack on free speech. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Gainesville was the same judge that was kicked off the case. All right, because, well, he was always doing something interesting that he probably shouldn't have been doing. Now, Later on that month, on the 28th in 23, Young Thug's attorneys defies Thug. Much to the delay of the trial, finally beginning November 27, 23, the attorney, Brian, still delivers his first viral moment. When the trial, he was shocked viewers and prosecutors with his alternate definition of his client's artistic moniker, which is defined as truly humble under God. He also explained that Pusha P was just pushing positivity, and YSL was named after Yves Saint Laurent's fashion designer. Yeah, I had to drop my head on that because I find it hard to believe that that's like I get, you know, YSL and Yves Saint Laurent. I get it. I know damn well that damn sure wasn't what they named it after. Okay, and I also know that Pusha P, who's supposedly pushing positivity, well, you listen to the song and let me know if that's what you get from the push. All right. Now, December 10th, YSL's co-defendant was stabbed in jail. Yeah, all right. They caught him. Co-defendant Shannon was stabbed multiple times by another inmate who entered his cell. He did survive his injuries, but after being attacked in the back, stomach, and shoulder, he is one of the 6 defendants left in the case heading to trial. Per inmate Willett Brown admitted to stabbing him multiple times after taking the knife out of his hands. I went into his room and he said, pulled out a knife on me. I took it from him and stabbed him. Again, I wasn't there. I don't know if that person wasn't sent in there to do a job and finish a job. I don't know. I wasn't there. They caught the person that did it. Now, January 3rd, the YSL co-founder, identifies Young Thug as founding members. So, Stevens took the witness stand after agreeing to plea with 8 years after agreeing to a plea deal of 8 years. Stevens, who also goes by Trick and Slug, identifies himself, Young Thug, Walter Murphy, as the founding members of YSL. He gave the prosecutors trouble when having a tough time recalling certain events that when he took the stand. Stevens claims that on the stand the next day, YSL was a record label before anything and looked to be positive. That's right. Evolution and raising Cleveland and raised on Cleveland Street Gang, which has blood ties. YSL is a music label. Music happened first. That was the approach, he said, according to music. Now, that's what they saying they putting out. That's what they selling. They putting out music. No gang gang. All right. Now, getting into this year, January 11th, things started to heat up and steam up. The legal team turned the tables up when they played Lifestyle, which Thug's 2014's breakout hit, in an attempt to convince the jury that it was merely art and that he had no legitimate gang ties. While others wore blood-colored clothing, Thugger did not have an ounce of red. Thugger did not have any reaction to the track being played in court. Now, I will say that Thugger did wear all types of different clothes, okay? And y'all know that. Don't act like we didn't see it. Attorney Nicole represented a former co-defendant of the YSL trial named Taquarius Mender and has herself arrested in court charges relating to separate 2022 Atlanta gang shootings. She was charged with participating in a criminal street gang activity and evidence tampering. That's the attorney now. That's what I'm talking about. This case was nuts. The attorney is getting arrested because they say she had tampered with evidence. So you got the judge messing up. You got an attorney messing up. How are you going to keep these people in jail if you can't get it together? Okay. 2024, in February, Young Thug identified as alleged gunman in a 911 call. Young Thug as a gunman for shooting a friend. Says they came to my house, told me that the guy who shot somebody's name was Young Thug, whoever that was supposed to be. So there was just a call with somebody stating that they thought, Young Thug did something. That's not really usable evidence unless there's actual a sign or a show of that actually occurring, right? There's no usable evidence from that. So with that being the case, that's no surprise that that didn't stay. On March 19th, the witness admits to being high under oath. Okay? Let's see.
Tell you the water, huh? I'm so high right now, y'all. I'm about to go sleep on y'all now.
I'm just saying.
I ain't gonna tell you that.
Yes, you man. You can take a break soon.
I get a water. I'm so high right now. How are we gonna trust his statements? That's the way to come in. All messed up. Smart. They made a mockery of this court.
You need a moment? Keep the ball rolling.
Okay. Mr. Coco, if you could just show me where you stopped again. Remind me. 349.97. You're on the plate further right from me. All right.
When your wife was speaking, and it was some point around the 11-minute mark, you said they gave us a story to tell. Remember hearing that, Rizzo? And can you tell us what that meant?
Oh, yeah. So as you can see, first thing he said when he got on that stand was,
Tell you the water, huh? I'm so high right now, y'all. I'm about to go sleep on y'all now.
all right. So there's more going on behind all of this. Now, the judge denies Young Thug's motion to have the lead prosecutor removed. So let's see. Thug's attorney filed a motion to have District Attorney Audrey Love taken off the case, but represents Judge Gainville was denied by Gainville. Thug's lawyer, Brian, believes that Love continuously injected herself in an unsworn witness in cases in her methods of question, to the alleged victim in robbery that took place in 2013 on the stand. Love started statements with, "Isn't it true you told me?" which Thug's team took an issue to. However, the request to have Love take the stand off of the case was denied. Now, this article stops here in 2024 April. After that, of April 2024, they changed out judges. They kept messing up, and they found more and more reasons why this case should be, in a sense, tossed. Right? We're gonna get into some legal stuff through the legal teams over here from Sidebar, and we're gonna see what Jesse and them have to say because, like I know, I'm gonna take you there. Second, it's gonna be a second. We're gonna pop over there, and see what they got going on Sidebar. 1 second. So let's see. Dirk's father has a few things that he was sharing say. So let's see what he chatting about. I mean, not Dirk. I'm getting into Dirk later, but Young Thug's pops had this to say.
I was kind of startled behind it because I was in agreement with Brian and Keith. Let's keep fighting. You know what I'm saying? Let's make them continue to embarrass themselves. But at the same token, my son is I've never tried to interfere with his decisions.
Okay.
I just try to give him the knowledge of making the best decision that he sees fit for him. And I support it.
And he supports it.
I feel great that he's going home. But at the same token, I still want to fight. But that's his decision. On the other hand, I raised him to be the man that he is. I've always been in his life from a pup to now. And I'm going to continue to be in his life. And as an adult, he has to make his own decision. Yes, I do.
So in the case, for those who don't know, she's about to get into why and what. So Young Thug's a list of things that he basically can't do. One of those things is he can't be playing around in Atlanta's metro area.
I'm totally agree because this is where he's from. And to have a district attorney take that away from him that isn't a resident from here. She's from another state. And to see her take a man away from where he's from to have to go live somewhere else, that's offensive to me. I'm really offended by it.
Sorry, I thought you were done. I was just saying, can you talk about your bond for music? And part of his conditions is that he can still make music, still do some performances.
He's still gonna make music.
I know you said you were hoping to
He was making music during the trial.
get back to that with him.
Yeah, we gonna get back to work. You know what I'm saying?
I know the world, for most people, would like him to get back to work and get back to the music. I do hope for most people's sake and some others that, he picks and chooses some of the words in there carefully.
That's in our system. And that's the district attorney office. So vote Courtney Kramer. I support Courtney Kramer to the fullest. I feel like
District attorney's office has been a mess over there for him.
Absolutely true.
What are your thoughts on his art being used against him?
not just the art, freedom of speech. Let's talk about his rights. We freedom of speech, man. How can you take a person's freedom of speech and say, now we're gonna tell you how you need to talk or how you're supposed to talk?
I don't know if he knows, but the industry been doing it to most of the artists forever. That's why they only let you put out what they want you to put out.
Who would feel comfortable with any of us out here right now feel comfortable with someone telling us you convert from saying this? You can't say that. What do the Constitution play a role in? These young men, all of these young men, and some of us too, all of our rights are being violated right now because we're being dictated to on how we're supposed to live, how we're supposed to look, what we're supposed to say. We have a constitution. When are we gonna start acknowledging our constitution? We did away with supposedly. We did away with communism. I can't tell. We took down the statue. We tore up a flag. What about the laws? Let's change the laws too. You know what I'm saying? If we're going to do away with it, let's do away with all of it. Change the law. We're in a new day and time. Let's make the laws for the new day and time.
Do you think his lyrics will change now?
I hope not. I wouldn't. But, you know, he's behind the 8 ball right now. So we're going to have to justify something. We're going to have to make some justification on how we got the narrative now. You know, in that saying. That a man should have to do that, and that's his way of life. That's how he feeds himself. That's how he feeds his family. That's his job.
It is like music. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about his job for music and how he feeds his family, his way of life. Well, the judge basically said that she hopes that he would use his platform to basically be better and do better, especially in the lyric category.
So we thank you guys. We do gotta head to Right Street.
Any words that you want to wish to anybody else remaining on the case? Anything you want to say to them?
Yeah, I definitely want to say something to the people that's left on this case, along with the people who are waiting to be charged. Keep your heads up. Keep fighting. Sooner or later, somebody's going to have to make a decision. We need to start making the people accountable that makes the decisions for us. So we need to put the right people in office. We need to start standing the people that we vote for.
So he mentioned the fact too that there are still certain people awaiting, because there's certain people that still are going to go in front of a jury and have their verdict told to them by the jury. Young Thug had something really interesting happen where it basically was he left it up to the judge. So we're going to get into that and how real shortly. But several people left on there right now that also were kind of sentenced in a sense. You have Nichols, who was sentenced to 20 years and basically served 7 on credit. The rest of them things will be on probation. You have Hugh, who got hit with racketeering and conspiracy. He also has 25 years. I think 9 of them are going to be locked up, and then the rest will be on probation. And then you have Ryan, who, well, he's the youngest of the youngest, if I'm not mistaken in all of this. He got 10 years prison time, but you know what? He was already serving prison time for a murder that was committed when he was 15 that he got hit for in 2019 and was serving a life sentence with that anyway. So those 3 individuals there are still, are pretty much like took deals, talked to, their deals are done, they're off the table, moving on. There's still others behind them that, well, also got deals and doing things and will be talked to and talked about.
See this, but I will be raising it. I think it's, and I'm not going to let that issue go.
How did that happen?
So,
how did the prosecutors allow an unredacted version of that Instagram post to be read in open court?
How has it all happened?
As I've been mentioning, this whole case was a mockery, a mess, and they've been playing around with the system, and we've watched it. This guy right here happens to be one of the lawyers who are defending another person inside of this case.
How have we had 50 or so mistrial motions in this case, starting on the very first day? The very first day, the state put up a slide in their presentation.
The first day of everything happening, they were messing up.
To the jury that had information on it that the judge had ruled was not allowed to be displayed to the jury. It is not a new thing. This is a systematic failure on the part of the state to do their damn job over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
They don't prepare witnesses. They're sloppy. They have mistakes. They elicit testimony from witnesses that they know should not come out. And that is why I say, when you look at the totality of the circumstances over the last year, we should get a mistrial with prejudice.
Doug, thank you so much.
I brought that video up and put it up there to show they have been messing up on this case quite some time.
You
All right.
realize how much of an impact you have on people. I mean, it's past.
I want to get into the judge. I want to get into what she has to say about all of this, what she wanted to say to Young Thug. I also want to get into what Young Thug, well, said about himself and all of this.
Your neighborhood, it's worldwide, especially young people. And
Now, with this, he was hit with 3 counts of violation, drugs basically, participating in street gang activity, possessions of a gun. You know, again, they got him when they got the extra guns going in his house, whatever. No contest to a street gang RICO, and well, no leadership charge here. So
having come up
he did well.
came up from and living in and around that, you know, the gangs are damaging to our community. And it may be that a whole lot of rap music and the rap industry is, I mean, honestly, it sounds like a modern day version of kind of WWE wrestling that used to be on television, where people would just get up and posture and act like.
It's interesting she says that, because I know that we have rap battles, rap beefs, rap fights, and some of it is real and some of it is not. So it's interesting that she would bring up the fact that this is kind of like the
They
WWE.
hated each other. And it may be that that's a lot of what is going on in the music industry with rap. But whether it is fake or not, it has tremendous impact on kids and young people who think this is cool. This is what I want to do. Look at him. He's a millionaire. I can do that by being, you know, a gangster in the streets. And that's not true. What you're likely to have happen to you if you're a gangster in the streets is you get shot, you get killed, or you get thrown in prison. And those are, you know, by far.
Oh, in case I didn't mention it, this lady is the new judge because the old judge got kicked off. That's right. The male judge that was messing up, he was kicked off and she was replaced. He was replaced with her. And well, I'm going to go out there and just say that I think that that was probably the best thing that happened for him in this whole thing.
And, you know, you've been in here watching the trial, and you've seen the pictures of Mr. Ryan posing with a gun as big as he is at 15 years old and going out and shooting and killing another teenager. And that's what gangs do, and that's unfortunately a lot of what rap music does. And if you are a modern day John Lennon, you know, I mean, he might have rapped too in this day and age. I don't know.
You never know. My fault, y'all. We got it. Yeah,
I
you
know
know how it
you're
goes.
talented, and even if you choose to continue to rap, you need to try to use your influence to let kids know that that's not the way to go, and that there are ways out of poverty besides hooking up with the powerful guy at the end of the street selling drugs.
So, I will say that, yes, we know there's other ways to go. We do. But yes, the music that's promoted to the youth, well, it puts them in a bind and it messes with your mind if you don't know how to differentiate what's going on.
You know, I know that happens for protection sometimes, but a much better way would be getting an education and setting, you know, hanging around with people who set a good example. And you be one of those people that sets a good example. I mean, all right, so that's my high horse on that. I could also go on.
So I do believe that yes, you can get a good education. Now I will say, depending on where you are, certain school systems are further in the dirt than others, and that's just nicely put.
But I want you to try to be more of the solution and less of the problem.
That makes sense.
All right. Lost on the board that the state, had they been able to come to agreement on certain special conditions, was willing to entirely dismiss the RICO count, was willing to entirely dismiss one of the gang counts, and was willing to entirely dismiss this, machine gun count. Was willing to give a sentence that permitted Mr. Williams to walk out of the door today, and therefore does not seem to be particularly worried that Mr. Williams, if on the streets, would be a danger to society. I'm taking that into consideration and crafting my sentence.
So
And
in her crafting her sentence, like I said, I thought it was interesting that she had the power to be able to craft the sentence, that they gave that to her. They must have really felt as though that she has been very fair throughout this case, because, I get that a lot of judge makes those decisions, but again, this is one of those, this was supposed to be a jury trial, this and that. So, I mean, it took them a year just to get 12 people on a jury on this one. So for her to go ahead to be able to make the decision, they really felt comfortable with her.
In one of the two gang counts, I would not be permitting the dolo to the one if you were not pleading guilty to at least one of them. But you are, and y'all admit a factual basis for the counts that you are pleading guilty to. I find there to be a factual basis for those counts, and for the remaining counts with which you are charged. I am going to impose a sentence, and I've taken a little bit of the suggested special conditions from the defense and a little bit of the special conditions suggested by the prosecution.
So she decided the total sentence would be 40 years in prison.
40 years in prison? That's a long time. And as you also heard, she's taken things from both sides. She took stuff from prosecution and defense.
To serve 5 years, but that is commuted to time served.
You see, that's my face when he said 40 years. I'm looking like that. What the hell's going on here?
And he has 15 years probation. But if he violates the terms of that probation, if he gets in trouble, he could be looking at 20 years in prison. That 20 years in prison is backloaded. So he has to make sure that he does not get in trouble. And by all accounts, it appears that he is going home.
And he did. He did go home. He went home.
On this, because Young Thug,
but he can't get in nothing. Nothing.
after all is said and done, after 2 years, after everything I just described, he's going home.
He is. And great to see you, Jesse. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, this has been a stressful.
So the attorney for Deontay, who's a part of the same case. So this guy has been in the courtrooms with him, hanging out, watching, paying attention to things. He's on top of what's going on here.
A week, obviously, for everybody. A lot of negotiations going on back and forth with all the parties. And I'm really glad that although they didn't reach a deal, but I'm really glad to see Jeffrey going home. It's where he should be. He shouldn't be locked up in the jail in Cobb County. And so he took a big roll of the dice today, and it paid off for him. That guy, he has some nerve. He's very brave.
He got some brass nuts.
What do you think led to this?
close in the negotiations, as you heard by watching that. And it was really the special conditions, these onerous special conditions that the state wanted to put on Jeffrey. I think that, I'm just guessing here, that was the issue. So
he's like, man, y'all could barely do your job, but you won't put special conditions on me?
rather than accept that and go home and go home confidently, like, no, okay, if I take this deal from the state, I'm walking out the door today. Jeffrey made the very difficult decision to do a non-negotiated plea and let the judge decide what his sentence should be.
A non-negotiated plea.
And in terms of just going into plea deals, I mentioned before how several of his co-defendants pled guilty as well. Was this just bound to happen? Because after the whole mistrial debacle that was, a week or 2 weeks ago, was that what basically
What is
hey, let's start trying to end this case?
a
I can't speak for
non-negotiable
Jeffrey or
plea
his
deal?
counsel. Sure.
All right.
Speaking on our behalf,
So a non-negotiable plea deal is where the district attorney and the defense attorney have not reached an agreement on the terms according to Fulton County Clerk's website, by the way. According to them, that's interesting. So he took on that understanding three primary types of plea bargains. There is a charged bargaining, sentence bargaining, and a fact bargaining. Non-negotiated plea bargains in Georgia explained. Instead of negotiating the sentence, the defense presents their plea directly to a judge who then fully picks whether or not they fully have discretion over final punishment. This is the type of plea where the defendant waives their rights to trial with no guaranteed sentence in advance. So he waived his right to trial, which he was already at trial. I mean, they already doing all of this now.
what I guess motivated everybody is it was very clear that after last week, after the motion for mistrial, that the judge was encouraging the parties to try.
Now, this lady right here knew. See that? Look at that hair. This lady right here, she didn't give a shit. This lady knew she was going to be on TV, and she said, I need to make sure my shit together. Y'all ain't going to have me out here looking like this. This lady, she woke up. I woke up like this.
Come together to see if we can reach plea agreements. And she doesn't have a lot of power in that sense, but she can push maybe a little bit. And given that, we got together and we talked. And I wouldn't say it was inevitable. It was not inevitable that Jeffrey Williams was going to enter a guilty plea that would permit him to go home.
Don't you dare cry out there, Thugger.
It wasn't inevitable because right now in the courtroom, you've got my client, Mr. Kendrick, as well as Mr. Stillwell, who are proceeding to trial. Proceeding to a jury verdict.
By the way, how does that work? Walk me through that. Your clients are still on trial. This jury still hears this. Do they? I mean, what do they ask? What happened to the rest of the co-defendants? How does this work?
Well, I'm sure in their head they're going to ask what happened to the co-defendants. I'm going to have to get together with Max Shart, and we are going to come up with a proposed jury instruction. I imagine that the state will also come up with a proposed instruction, and the judge will make a decision as to how to instruct the jury. And I think it's going to be something to the effect, some version of, obviously, as you can see, some defendants are no longer present in the courtroom. You are not to take anything from that. You are not to speculate or guess why they aren't here.
I think that's kind of hard, right? Because everybody already knows what's happened in the case. So for them to come in and be like, well, yeah, you're not going to speculate. You're not going to take this from it. You're not going to do that. It's like, how? That's like, I watch you throw the rock, hit the person in the head, and then you go, well, you didn't see me throw the rock. It's like, well, now that I've told somebody, now that in my head, I'm like, well, I saw that. In my head, I already know. I seen it. I can go, like it didn't happen, but I've already seen it. So the vision is going to continue to play out in my head.
You have to remember there's a presumption of innocence for those two defendants that remain, and we carry on.
That would look like, I mean, that would look like a weakness.
That's right, Jesse.
I mean, if you're sitting on the jury and you see that there's no defendants there, it makes me wonder if the jury is looking at perhaps a weakness in the prosecution's case.
You know, there's lots of theories as to whether that is helpful to the two of us that remain.
Liberty Mutual customized my car insurance and was it rejected?
I got that one quick.
That is helpful to the two of us that remain, or if it's harmful.
Was there a deal offered for your client? Was it rejected, and why was it rejected?
There was a deal offered for my client.
Okay, everybody got deals.
And by the way, my client is the only one that can accept or reject those deals. We do not make those decisions. The public doesn't make the decisions. The mom doesn't make the decisions. Only the client makes that decision. And he rejected that deal. And the main reason that he rejected that deal is they wanted him to plead guilty to things that he didn't do. And in particular, they were insistent that he take responsibility for the death of Donovan Thomas, which he had absolutely nothing to do with. And while the years might arguably look good, he is absolutely not willing to take responsibility for Mr. Thomas's death when he had nothing to do with it. And that's what killed any hope of a deal.
Do you think that there could be room for negotiation for that to be dropped and your client be able to take a deal that's acceptable?
You know, throughout this process, even though we do think we're winning, we have to be open to the possibility of plea deals. It would be irresponsible and in violation, I guess, of my ethical obligations to just reject them out of hand. So if they want to come back to us with some type of an offer that removes a requirement that we take responsibility for a death that we are not responsible for, then we will certainly entertain that, and I'll give it to my client as I'm obligated to do.
Why do you think Judge Whitaker, because again, if we're talking about Jeffrey Lamar Williams, who prosecutors said was the head of this criminal organization, why?
Young Thug.
Why do you think, what were some of the factors you think led her to say he can go home today, that the sentence could be commuted, that there's no prison time? I think she mentioned something about what the prosecutors had offered, and what the prosecutors had offered kind of gave her a sense of maybe he's not as dangerous as they're suggesting. I mean, what do you think the factors were that led Judge Whitaker to impose this kind of sentence?
I think that is a major factor. The fact that the prosecutors had to put on the record, because requested by the judge, to know what that offer was. And the fact that the prosecutors, it's exactly what you're saying. The fact that the prosecutors had offered probation demonstrates that the prosecution did not believe Jeffrey Williams was a threat to be out on the streets. So I think that gave the judge tremendous latitude to craft a sentence that would, again, allow him to return home today.
And the place too about where he can go, what he can do, what he can't do. What did you make of that?
You know, most of the restrictions that the judge put on Mr. Williams were those that were recommended by his own attorneys. So obviously those were one.
That's interesting. See, that part is interesting because some of the restrictions that were placed on him were him not being able to hang out in Atlanta, right? The metro area. He's got to be away from it. He can only go back and visit for deaths, friends and family, big events, and one other thing, but he can't be there, so he chose that.
That he was comfortable taking. You know, I'm not going to speak for Mr. Williams, but I'm sure that he hated to plead guilty in this case, and that this was done for pragmatic reasons. Just as Brian Steele put on the record today, he wanted to get home, he wanted to see his family, he has obligations to them, he had medical issues he needed to take care of. And while I guess Brian said 3 more months, who knows how much longer this trial is going to go on. So, you know, Jeffrey is an intelligent man. I think he just weighed things and viewed this as being in his best interest.
Yeah, so some of the conditions were he has to stay away from the Atlanta metro area for the first 10 years of probation. Yeah. He's permitted to go there for weddings, funerals, graduations, immediate family members, medical emergencies.
Right.
No contact with defendants in the case. Can't have a firearm, things of that nature. The idea that this is I don't know if you had an opportunity to speak to Steele especially, because he became a central figure in this case as well. What is that feeling like to not be a part of a case that has consumed your life for such a long period of time? I don't know if you had a chance to speak to him about it. Feels like maybe like a sense of relief, I imagine.
I don't know. I haven't.
So, touching on some of those things that he basically touching on some of the stuff that they were chatting about real quick. You see, Williams pleaded guilty to charges in possession of the firearm during commissions of a felony, 3 counts of violating the Controlled Substance Act, and a gang count as far as the RICO and participating in criminal street gang activities. He pleaded no contest. As a part of the probation and the special conditions, Williams is not allowed back in Atlanta for 10 years. His only exception is for weddings, funerals, mandatory anti-gang presentations, concerts. He also is banned from having any contact with any alleged members of any criminal gangs except for his brother, Quantavious Guerre, and Gunner, Sergio, whom both accepted plea deals earlier in the trial. His brother was sentenced to 9 years in prison. If Williams does violate any of the things that are mentioned, he will spend 20 years in prison, as the news of the rapper has begun to circulate the social media. Let's see. A lot of people have started welcoming him home, like Nicki Minaj. His boo thing was obviously super excited about having him come home and seeing him, right? The boo thing was definitely excited, as, let's see, she went out to state. Let's hope, before I get into what she said, let me see what else Jesse's getting into.
Disagreement was.
Yes. And he walked out of the courtroom today and is going home. That's a tremendous victory. The state can say whatever they want about the victory, about the fact that he pleaded guilty, but the reality is Jeffrey Williams is going home. And I can't view that as anything but a victory.
There was one thing so a large portion of today's hearing was both the prosecution and Brian Steele, I guess, disagreeing about what exactly he's admitting to, or what exactly he's pleading to, or what the statement of the facts were. Can you walk us through exactly what that disagreement was?
Sure. I mean, it's a fundamental disagreement about pretty much everything. I think what Brian was agreeing to is, yes, there are the elements necessary, and there was a factual basis for Mr. Williams to plead guilty to those counts that he did plead guilty on. But he took exception with pretty much everything the state had to say. And this is, it's not surprising. In a non-negotiated plea, the state is allowed to stand up and proffer their version of events, just as the defense is allowed to stand up and proffer our version of events. And that's what you saw occur today. So the parties very much disagree about what happened, who was responsible for what happened, and it was a chance for both of them to get. The state is allowed to stand.
I mean, like I know, these two have been very much, they have all been off on everything they've said with each other. They have never been on the same page between the state and and what's going on here with Young Thug. Never ever. Now, his boo thing, for those who don't know, his boo thing, his girlfriend, Mariah the Scientist, she decided to go on social media, share out some of those emotional statements. Basically, he was sentenced on Thursday for 15 years probation. She went out there to state that she is basically so grateful that he is on his way home. Bleep all the people who thought that it wasn't going to happen, that didn't believe in him and didn't believe in her. This is what Megan the scientist went out there to stay. All right. And that they want to go ahead and enjoy their lives, and joined by the couples are celebrating their 3rd anniversary. We're joined by several other people. And guess what? They want to continue to be surrounded by the other people for the rest of his days on good days. Now, prior to us getting up off of here, I need for you all to watch what Young Thug said back to the courts, because he also went out there and had something to say after she decided when I say she, I mean the judge. After the judge decided basically what the judge had to say about all of it.
On probation, if he successfully completes that probation, then he would not have to go to custody. If he did not, he'd face probation revocation as well as 23 years, as the court said, backloaded in the Georgia prison system. But we could not come to terms on all the conditions that the district attorney was insisting upon.
Okay.
All right. They couldn't come to terms, but they did. Hold on, man. Hold on. That's the one that was there. They ended up coming to terms, and I don't know why I can't find what I'm looking for right quick, where Young Thug goes out and he basically states that he don't want to see this judge ever again unless it's outside where they got to go get something to eat. He's going to do better. And he feels bad for some of the things that have gone on with everything as we've seen. With that being said, when I find it, I'll post it. In the meantime, I want you all to go ahead and enjoy your day. Thank you for tuning into the Twisted Tea, where we come to bring you the news with a twist. Now, quick run through of everything that we just went over. Young Thug's coming home. All right. That's the biggest part. Young Thug's coming home. Okay. There was a lot of messes going on in this case, and I'm sure more things will come out about this case as we continue to get more information, because Young Thug's just going to do more interviews telling you all more. So you know what to do. Enjoy the day. Peace out. I'll catch you all later.